Okay, so we've officially started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Data Geeks Lab multi-factor authentication webinar. We're gonna, let's see here, just a moment. I got to figure out, I'm lost in too many tabs. There we are, share screen. All right, present. I'm perhaps not the best name, but I couldn't think of a better one. Multi-factor authentication and you. So here we go. So what are we talking about today? First, I'm just going to define what is multi-factor authentication. We're going to sort of demystify this particular piece of tech jargon and provide like a clear definition of what it actually is. We're going to explain the new rules that Salesforce is going to be enacting starting next year regarding multi-factor authentication. I'm going to try my best to convince you that this is a good thing, that this is actually a very good improvement for all of us and for the Salesforce ecosystem. And finally, I'm going to do two demos. I'm going to show you two ways that you can enable multi-factor authentication for your users. And finally, at the end, I'm just going to open it up to questions. And if you've got any burning questions, Caroline's going to be in the chat, possibly answering those. I'm going to do my best to ignore it because it's just going to derail me and distract me. All right, and if you can mute yourselves, I would appreciate it for the time being. All right. So what is multi-factor authentication? Just to define these terms, when we talk about authentication, this is a way of proving to a system or something else that you have access to it. So there are generally three, and factors are the way that you prove that. And there are generally three factors that we rely on to define that. And the first one is something you know. The thing that you're probably most familiar with is a password. If you've got a gate or some other entrance to your house or structure, you might have a passcode, or if you have one of those like laptop locks with the secret, code, that's something that you know. Or if you've got a backyard tree house, it's a secret club, you have to know the secret handshake to get in. That is something you know. A second factor is something that you have. So the thing you're probably most familiar with is your house keys. You have this key, it matches the lock that's on the door, and that lets you into your house. Likewise, your car, you're going to have if it's a newish car, I guess, I don't know how new it is, the fobs that, you just walk up and it knows, okay, this fob is in my presence. This person now has access to this vehicle. And the thing relevant to our discussion today is that second thing that you have is going to be a smartphone that has a particular app installed on it. And the third factor, I just want to say that it exists. We're not going to be going into any depth about it today, is something that you are. So something biometric scanning. So if you have a phone with a fingerprint scanner, or if one of these new fancy iPhones where you just look at it and then it knows your face and opens up, that's something that you are. It's generally considered the least preferred of these three, because unlike something you have or something you can't change it, right? It's hard to change your fingerprints. It's hard to change your face. If this imagine that you could probably sculpt somebody's face perfectly and unlock their iPhone or something like that. But so generally speaking, it's not the best of the three, and it's not relevant to our discussion today, but I want to acknowledge its existence. Okay, new rules. So you may have seen the alerts when you're logged into Salesforce where it says it's time for MFA. And if you click through that and you read everything, what it's going to tell you is that starting February 1st, 2022, every login to Salesforce must be verified with a second factor. So right now you're using one factor to log in, and that's your password. Now you're going to need a second factor, and that can't be another password, right? It has to be something from one of those other buckets. I want to clarify that the email verification code that you get, so if you're logging in on a new computer or if you're in a new place, that 5-digit code that gets sent to your email, that is not multi-factor authentication, and that is not going to count as something that counts as that second factor. And also there's no SMS validation, and I will go into why that is in a little bit. And if you're stressed about a couple of things, you can be relaxed to know that it's not going to be required for sandboxes. It can be enabled for sandboxes, but it's not required. It does not apply to customer experiences or communities. So I know the Beneficial State Foundation, you're on the call. This is not going to apply to the portals we've been working on for you. I'm not sure if anyone else on this has a community or an experience, but you know if you do, and don't worry about those folks. It doesn't apply to your third-party apps that connect to Salesforce through what we call an API connection. So Kazumi, Zapier, MailChimp, FormAssembly, all of those are going to continue to work. When you initially set up that connection, when you authorize the connection between one of those apps and Salesforce, you do need to use multi-factor authentication. But on an ongoing basis, it does not need to be like re-authenticated. And finally, if you use single sign-on, MFA is going to be expected through that service. And just a summary for those of you who don't know what that is, that means you're authenticating, you're logging into Salesforce using some other credentials, such as your company's Microsoft account or other service like that. So I think this is a good thing. And the reason is that passwords suck, that they are an antique of an earlier time, and they are just not up to the task of protecting all of our entire digital lives, the world that we live in now in the 21st century. And here's why. I'm going to show you one of my favorite websites. Oh, there we go. One of my favorite websites is haveibeenpwned.com. And so there's a security researcher in Australia who collects data leaks, right? So a website is hacked and its user database is extracted, and in that database is going to contain information about not just like your email and your name and your address and all that kind of stuff, but it can also contain your password or an encrypted, possibly poorly encrypted version of your password. So let's just stick this is the email address I used when I was in high school. It no longer exists. I'm not worried about you folks knowing it. Let's see, has this email been pwned? And I'm afraid it has. I would have not selected it for this demo if that was the case. And I won't go over all of these. Let's just scroll down to here. So in 2008, MySpace was hacked. And in this hack contained email addresses and passwords. Now, of course, this was 13 years ago. I'm less concerned about what password I was using on MySpace at that time. It's not something I still use, but you can imagine, like, here's Evite in 2019, right? That's a fairly recent hack. It means that whatever password that I was using on this website at that time is now out there, right? It is now something that a hacker could get their hands on. These are very common. I mean, Yahoo in, I think it was 2015, LinkedIn in 2016. There are an embarrassingly large number of these. Where are we here? So restarting. Okay. And so basically your security right now is only as good. You may think, oh, well, we have all sorts of, we change our Salesforce passwords every couple of days. I don't think that my staff would be using the same password in Salesforce that they might be using on LinkedIn in 2016, for example. But are you sure that they're not doing the same thing with their email? And that's kind of the linchpin in the whole thing, because right now your security is your work email, right? Yeah, if you want to reset your Salesforce password, that link is going to go to the email address, which if that is compromised, then your Salesforce is compromised. Yeah, I would just encourage you to ask yourself, are you convinced that your staff are using not just good passwords, but unique ones that are not being leaked in one of these various hacks? And it's for this reason, not just to have unique passwords for everything, but I would encourage you to use MFA for as many systems that support it that you have to use. Oops. So I mentioned earlier that SMS or text messaging validation is not one of the options that Salesforce is going to be allowing us to use. And the reason for that is that there is a common hack called SIM swapping. And it's not even a hack. It's embarrassing that this is a problem that we're talking about in the 21st century, but here's how it works. A hacker calls your phone company and says, I'm you, I lost my phone, can you swap my number to a new SIM card? And for some reason, the phone company is just, I mean, they want to do good customer service, right? They want to make sure that this is easy. But you know, if somebody knows your name, your phone number, some details about you, it's relatively easy for them to convince the phone company to swap the SIM to a new ID. And so once they have that, they're in control of your phone number. What you're going to see is an alert like what's on this iPhone here that says no SIM card installed, even though you have a SIM card. And they're going to just reset your passwords using the SMS verification. When I have to use SMS verification for various services, they don't support some other form of MFA. I will use a Google Voice number that is behind multi-factor authentication. It's protected by MFA, so that I'm not vulnerable to this, but Salesforce doesn't want its service to be vulnerable to this well-known hack either. All right, and I imagine that this group might not be hard to convince that you should care about security. I mean, you are a self-selected group of people who decided to join this webinar on security, so that's good. But I would say that, you know, there have been stories of nonprofit organizations being victimized by hackers. I was just reading up on this in preparation for this. I discovered this one that really kind of upset me, that there's an organization in the Bay Area called One Treasure Island. They're trying to redevelop that island in the middle of San Francisco Bay to be for low-income housing. A hacker got into the email account of the bookkeeper. They sent an invoice to the executive director. It was something that they were expecting, and so they just paid it. $650,000 gone that are not going to be used for that organization's mission. And I've got a list of a few other ones here. There are so many reasons that it's not just monetary reasons that somebody might want to hack you. So please take it seriously. And I won't belabor that point. So what are your options? There's basically three that I think are relevant to the conversation. We're only going to talk about two because the third one requires buying something that I don't own. And I don't have it, so I can't demo it. The first one's Salesforce Authenticator, and this is the one that we recommend. It's basically an app that you download to a smartphone. And when you are trying to log in, it's going to pop up with a little alert. Is this you? You say yes, and then it lets you into Salesforce. The second option is a time-based one-time password, or you maybe remember back some time ago, if you're trying to log into your bank, they might have sent you like a little dongle where there's like a number that's changing every 30 seconds. That is the same thing, only instead of it being a little dongle, it's, you know, an app now. That you can be an app on your phone, it can be a desktop app. And what we're going to demo for you today is it being in a password manager, which is what we use at Data Geeks Lab to manage our multi-factor stuff. The last one, which I'm not going to talk about, is a physical security key. So YubiKey is a popular brand name of these, and basically it is something you plug into your laptop's USB port, and Salesforce is going to, after you provide your password, it'll say, hey, please hit the button on your YubiKey. You push the little button, and then that authenticates to Salesforce and says this person has the key, they're allowed in. And I just want to acknowledge that this is a thing. They will be enabling biometric authentication for this not by the due date of this, which is February 1st, as I said, but some point down the line, they will be enabling this for everyone, and it will only be on mobile connections. So if your staff need to access through their desktop or laptop computers, then this isn't gonna help you. All right, so like I said, first one, this is our best. First one is Salesforce Authenticator. It is our best balance of security and ease of use. And it also has the option to remember your location. So you'll know this on your phone when you say, you give an app permission to know your location, it actually won't bother you. It won't ask you to authenticate if you are in the location that you usually are in when you log into Salesforce. So like your office or your home or wherever that may be. So you also have the option to turn that off, and it'll ask you every single time. It's up to your users what they want to do. The main con of this, of course, is that it does require the use of a smartphone, which I understand, some employees or some organizations wouldn't want people using personal devices for this type of thing. So that's why we're going to go over the second one in a moment. Okay. So demo time. Let's move this away. So I've got an old iPhone that I pulled out of a drawer, sitting up here, so you can, I think it update, it moves around. Here we go, look at that. And I have in one of these many tabs, here it is, a Trailhead Playground that I'm going to connect to Salesforce Authenticator. All right, so how I got to this spot that I'm in here is I clicked on the little Astro face in the corner, and I clicked on Settings. And then in the left here, I select Advanced User Details. I should clarify, this is something that would need to be performed for each user at your organization, each internal user who needs to access your Salesforce. So this is a kind of a good, when I did this at my last job, I actually walked each employee in person. I just walk them through each one of these steps that I'm doing now. And if you have people who can figure this out on their own, you may not need to walk through it. But maybe you don't. So I'm going to see this right here, app registration, Salesforce Authenticator. I'm going to click connect. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to send an email, a link, a verification code to my email. Right now, the best way that Salesforce has to validate my identity is my email, because I haven't enabled MFA. So it's just going to use that. And maybe I can copy something. There we are. Verify. All right, so now it says it wants a 2-word phrase. And this is one of the quirkiest things about Salesforce Authenticator to me. Let's delete this one. Oops. Go away. Remove account. It's that it asks, when you add an account, what it's going to do is it's going to present this 2-word phrase on your phone, and it's going to ask for that 2-word phrase on the website. And it's always something weird, like original fool. Like, I guess you put any 2 random English words together, it's going to sound strange. All right, hit connect. Check your mobile device. You'll see over here, it's saying, hey, is this the Salesforce account that you want to connect? And I'll say, yes, connect. And that's it. It has been added. So let's open up another web browser here, one I never use. And I'm going to show you what happens when you try to log in with it. Thank you. So I'm going to go to login.salesforce.com. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Okay. Move this over here, which is the one that I just authenticated. This is Resourceful Hawk. Okay. There we are. I got too many windows here. Let's see. There we are. Put in my password. Log in. Check your mobile device. Okay, so over here on the right, you will see, and it's shown up on the phone that's physically in front of me, and it hasn't shown up yet on the device that's being broadcast for some reason, but you can see, oh, there it is. It says log into Salesforce. Okay, do you want to confirm this? I'm going to say yes, approve. And the moment I hit approve, you get this little checkbox on Salesforce, and I'm in. Here we are. All right, there we go. So that's really easy. I mean, at the last organization I worked for, we had everybody set up on this app. Nobody seemed to have a hard time with it. But I do want to show you this second option in case you do have anybody who doesn't want to do it that way. and that is using a time-based one-time password. It doesn't require the use of a smartphone, although the easiest way to implement it is using a smartphone. And it's possible for you to, if you need to share, it's generally against the rules in Salesforce for one user account to be shared with multiple people. But if you do have some sort of situation where you need to have that functionality, this does enable that possibility. It is ever so slightly harder to set up. I mean, you just saw with Salesforce Authenticator how easy that was. It is slightly harder, but not that much. You have to click one more thing. That's about it. All right, so let's go and back to this other tab. So I've got a different Salesforce Trailhead playground here. And I'm going to keep this phone up so I can show you how this works. So over here, I'm going to say one-time password authenticator. This is the option I'm going to select instead. Click connect. Again, it's going to send an email to authenticate. My other screen over here is just a maze of all the other things that I need access to. Where's that email? There it is. There we are. Okay, so what it's going to do is it's going to show me this QR code. And I'm going to show you on the phone over here how you would do this on if you were authenticating. So I've got another app over here called Google Authenticator. It works with any of these other systems. There's a million of these apps. There's Authy, Google Authenticator. Actually, Salesforce Authenticator can also be used for one of these. And if I click scan a QR code, it's going to, that happened very, very quickly. Okay, there it is. And there's my number. So you can see this kind of counter down here. Every couple of seconds, this is going to provide a different code. But there's no benefit to this over Authenticator if it's already on my phone, right? So let's show you the other way that you can do this. So what you're going to need to do, what we're going to do is connect it to LastPass, which is the password vault that we, or the what's the other word for it? Oh my goodness. Yeah, the password manager that we use at Data Geeks Lab. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this. It's just, there's an app you can download. It's also a browser plugin. I'm going to click add item, password. All right, so it's not Google. I don't know why it thinks it's Google. I'll just put that in business. Okay, so back in here, I'm going to click I can't scan the QR code. And so this QR code is just a visual representation of this text that we see right here. So if I copy this, I paste that into enter your secret key right there, activate. I'm just going to add a few, you would normally add your username and password in here. And I'm going to click save. And go away. Let me show you what this looks like. So if I find that password now, I say test. Oh, there's a lot of things called test. There's the one that I want. And normally when you log into something using LastPass, it's going to copy your username and password already into the fields on the web page for that. But I'm going to select this option, copy TOTP. And if I paste this here, you'll see that it is actually the same number that my phone is showing from that same code. That's because that that string of text, that is the key, and it's using time to kind of generate a new code every couple of minutes. And if you start with the same key, it's going to show you the same code. So it's possible to share accounts both through a password manager, which I'm showing you here. We kind of just share that back and forth, or you can actually have multiple people scan the QR code or something like that to kind of affect the same thing. And I do want to clarify one more thing. We at Data Geeks, we are protecting our LastPass behind a different layer of multi-factor authentication. So you're double protected, so don't worry about someone getting into the password manager. So that's it. That's the whole presentation. And now it is question time. I do see that we have 18 items in the chat. Caroline, should we start there, or should we just ask people to
Well,
pipe up?
let's start with a couple that some questions that we received. I'm glad you did do the LastPass demo, because actually some of the earlier items in chat, people were asking if you could use LastPass as single sign-on. So I said, hang on, wait till John gets to that bit.
I'll say
go on.
I think the free LastPass doesn't have that, and you have to pay for it if you want that functionality. I believe that. I'm about 90% sure about that. So.
Okay. So obviously the LastPass option and this one-time password or one-time the key code is going to be a good option for various people. There was a question one of our people asked after you'd done the Authenticator demo and the phone, they said, what happens if you've forgotten your phone and it's at home?
It won't work. What happens? What happens if you leave your car keys in the drain? In the if you drop them down a drain, a sewer drain or something? What happens if you throw them off into the Grand Canyon? That wouldn't be good either. It's the same thing. So,
but so if you were at the office and you found that you'd forgotten your phone, would you be able to use one of these other methods, do you think?
So it'd be a pain. So like you would not. If you actually, you know what, if your phone's at home, if you have the location thing turn on, right, where it knows that you're at home, or like your phone is at home, and if you normally access Salesforce at home, it might remember you, so it might still let you in.
Right.
But that's a maybe. I don't know that for sure. You'd be lucky if it did that. The other option might be that you'd call home, and maybe your partner or kid is there, and they're like, can you go hit this button on my phone? That's the best thing I can think of. But I mean, it's generally a bad thing. You're supposed to keep it with, the idea is that it's something that you have with you that you're going to authenticate onto. It can be said that, I mean, an administrator at your organization can reset it for you, that they can disable the connection to that phone and connect you to a new phone, or connect you to a time-based one-time password. So if you need to get in and your phone is in at the bottom of the Grand Canyon or something like that, then you're not SOL. You can actually disconnect an administrator can disconnect you from the old connection to the new one, to a new one.
Great. So I think that probably takes care of Ryan's question then. They asked if you could have multiple methods set up and use both the Authenticator and
you can.
Yeah.
You can connect them separately.
Right. Okay. So that's great. So it's good to know that the administrator might be able to get you out of trouble if your phone's not there. Okay. We also had a question really about timing, which is, should we get started on this right now, or should we wait till the deadline?
You should get started on this right now. On deadline day, anybody who is not configured with an MFA option is going to be forced to set one up right then and there before they can get into Salesforce. And I would imagine you would want to get people set up on that before, like, they might not know how to do it. I can just see that being a bit of a headache. So I would be starting right now, authenticating first a group of users who are the power users, the people who they absolutely need to get into Salesforce to do their daily job, and then after that, kind of move on to the rest of the people who may not need it as urgently as those folks.
Because you can start with yourself, can't you? I mean,
you can start with yourself.
The folks who are on the call, you could set it up, you could try it out for yourself, feel comfortable with it, and then start rolling it out to some users.
Absolutely, yeah. I would say for administrator users, this is even doubly important to others, and I'd say don't hesitate, get yourself set up right, today.
Yeah. Ryan is also asking, are there other options for the one-time password other than LastPass, free options?
Yes.
Would that be things like the Google one?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the app I was showing you here on my phone, this is Google Authenticator, which I you could download, and it enables this sort of thing. If you don't like Google for some reason, there is another app called Authy, that the AUTHY. They do the exact same thing. You can actually set up these in Salesforce Authenticator. There's a Microsoft Authenticator. There's a million apps that do this exact same thing. And I'm fairly sure I know there are some that work on desktop computers, Windows and Mac OS. I have not personally used them, but I know they exist, that do the exact same thing.
And the Salesforce Authenticator one that John showed you on the phone, that one is free, isn't
Yes.
it? It's just, so so far everything we've shown you is free, apart from the LastPass, where you would have to have a paid account to be able to use LastPass. Yeah.
Also
absolutely.
the YubiKey.
Oh yeah, of course.
The YubiKey, which
too.
I think those are like $30 to $50 or something like that.
Yeah. Diane was asking if an admin should set this up for every user.
In my experience, it's pretty, it's good to be with the person, but have them set it up themselves, because they're going to have to interact with their own phone, right? I certainly had a number of power users who were able to, I just said, hey, follow these instructions. I sent them a link that Salesforce provides, and they were able to figure it out for themselves. But I don't, the kind of the key thing about this is that you actually can't do the whole thing for them. They have to, if they're using Salesforce Authenticator, they have to install it on their own phone with their own Google or Apple ID, and tap their own device to get it connected. So, but yes, I think you should have like some personal touch of making sure that they can do that.
There's also a question from Miles, comes back to the sort of single sign-on, is saying that at their organization, they were thinking of doing something like Authenticator for single sign-on. Is it a good time to set all of this up now, or is it better to maybe try with something like the Salesforce Authenticator, get everybody used to that, and then do a full single sign-on?
I think it's not a bad time. I mean, I think that it's kind of up to you and your own kind of internal situation. I mean, you're going to have to do something, right? You're going to have to do something to up the security. So if you want to implement Authka for some other reason, if you think you're going to do it down the line anyway, yeah, I'd say go for it. I don't think it's going to be more complicated than getting everybody, you have to call, hey, have you done this yet? That whole thing, right?
Yeah. And Ryan says, thank you about collaborating on this setup, and a good point about that thing of, yeah, people have to do it for themselves, but it's great if you can guide them through it. So Amy's repeated a question, which is about the Lightning login, which I believe is the way that you were supposed to be able to get into Salesforce swiftly via a mobile phone. And I'm not sure whether it actually only applies to mobile apps, but how would this be affected by MFA? Do you know?
I don't have a good answer to that question, so I will get back to you, Amy, on that. And if anybody else wants to know, just send me an email, and I'll be sure to answer that question there as well. Yeah, I don't have a good answer right now. Sorry.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because that is about the Lightning login is kind of in a way personalizing it, I think, isn't it? And it's having it happen through your mobile phone. So I suspect, yes, somebody at Salesforce has kind of figured out how the Authenticator and the Lightning login would work together. Yes. Oh, right. Amy's just saying we don't use it. We were wondering if we should. Probably a good idea to get MFA working.
I would suggest using, Salesforce Authenticator and a password before trying some other. I mean, if you're already going to make people use a their device to, get a code or whatever. It's the easiest thing to do.
And I mean, as I put in the chat, as a follow-up to the question about when should we get started, I mean, if you are, if you need some help, please do reach out to us. We're offering this webinar, but we are also sort of getting prepared that we'll have a checklist and demos and ways that we can help all of you. So please do reach out if you have other questions and you want more help. From Kyla, how would MFA affect Salesforce access on our phone's SF app? So if you're using the mobile app, how does MFA affect it?
Again, I don't think I don't have a great answer. I can say that every time I've tried to so for example, if you use Salesforce data loader, right, and you're trying to authenticate on that to log in to do a data import, it'll do the same thing. It'll say, please check your mobile phone to authenticate, right? If you're trying to connect a third-party app to Salesforce, like Zapier or something like that, it'll ask for that authentication. I would presume that it does, but I haven't personally used that app, so I don't have a good answer for that either, and that would be something we can also look up. Kayla, can I confirm that that is the standard Salesforce app, and it's not something that's custom to you guys? Like, it's not like something special to you, like just the standard app. Okay, yeah. All right.
But I think in the case of mobile, it certainly seems like the Authenticator would be easier, because then it's sort of everything's housed on the same device, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
See it being really hard work kind of trying to go back and find a password somewhere else that isn't on your device in order to get in on the mobile app. And yeah, just as John mentioned before, in terms of other third-party apps, Zapier, Form Assembly, all these other ones that connect, you would need the MFA to get the initial setup going. But after that, because the MFA is tied to a specific login, isn't it, John? And so once the connection is established with an app like Zapier or whatever, then it just carries on working, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah. I see this question from Miles. We use Salesforce Classic. Are there any additional considerations for MFA? Nope. It's the exact same process. I think the only difference is what buttons you click. So if I can share my screen here, I'm going to switch this. This is the one that I set up with Salesforce Authenticator. If I switch to Classic, and I believe I down click on my name and I say, oh, is it my setting? Well, we'll find out which one it is. Is it my settings? Nope. Is it my personal? Aha, yeah, there it is. So you click on your name, it's my settings, advanced user details, and from there the process is exactly the same. You're gonna use these options on the page to connect that user. Is there a canned demo we can send our users, like the piece you did going to your settings in Salesforce and the login process showing the cell phone side by side? We can edit this video to just like cut out the rest of it and just have that like 2-3 minute section of it. And aside from that, I'm sure Salesforce, I'm sure there's already YouTube videos that do the same thing. But yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Yeah.
Lots of thumbs up, John.
I'll be happy to do that.
Yes, I've seen Anne Crawford do one, but actually yours was a lot smoother, I think. So there we go. Short demo video. Yes, you're getting lots of thumbs up for that, John. And you rock.
Thank you, Anna. All right. I'm just going to scan through the questions here to see if there's anything else. Is LastPass SSO? It is not.
I think we've done, yeah.
Oh,
okay.
SSO is like, I just helped another client do this where they have Azure, they have like, Microsoft account where they connect. This is how you connect to your your email, how you would connect to your various web apps like Word and Excel and stuff like that. And then one of the apps that those people now have access to through their Microsoft account is Salesforce, right? So that's kind of what SSO is. It's not a password manager. Da, da, da. Da, da, da.
I think we got everything.
I think we got it all. Well,
Mm.
last call for questions, folks. I don't want to leave anyone uncertain about anything. How are we all feeling about it? Do we like the idea that Salesforce is making everybody do a second factor, or are we annoyed? Are we, let's say we got some thumbs up going on, some happy feelings. All right. I don't think is the reactions, there's only thumbs up. Maybe if you
Everyone else has just gone quiet.
Yeah, maybe do the open. I see a laughter. I see, maybe let's do the open mouth if you're not happy about it. The little like,
yeah,
face,
somebody's
maybe.
crying. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we got
Oh no.
some people
yes,
aren't happy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and we see some of the comments are like, like the admins are
Yeah.
like fine, but Ryan and
Mhm.
Amy in particular are
Yeah,
worried
yeah.
about that their users will complain.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, the last org that I worked at where I set this up for everybody, we had some kind of low tech users. People would, got used to it very quick. It wasn't something that was, it wasn't a heck of a lot. I think you'll find that there's less griping than you might expect. So hopefully.
And John, there was a question of the Authenticator app is just called the Salesforce Authenticator.
That's correct. If you search in your app store of choice and you find Salesforce Authenticator, that's the one.
Yeah. And Anna has also asked a bit about the difference between single sign-on and authentication apps. I mean, what we're showing you is specifically to get into Salesforce, isn't it?
Right.
Single sign-on may cover a variety of different apps or systems that you interact with.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, and interesting comment from Brittany that I was fine with MFA for my usual users, but when it came to a login that had to be shared, I didn't like the options that Salesforce offered.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why we showed you the LastPass option as well, because it's been something we've been struggling a bit with, isn't it, John?
Yeah, it was something that because I mean, we knew that this was like, oh, this is an issue that we need to take seriously, right? Like previously we were using the email account that we were sending the codes to, and that was behind multi-factor authentication protection. But now that we have to protect all these other ones, we researched it, we figured out that LastPass was the best option for us. So it's better than a book of QR codes, I think was my other idea, that we would hold up to the webcam and people would scan it or something like that. All right. Well, if there's not going to be any more questions, I'm going to stop the recording in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.